Thank you so much. I am really excited to be here today. My name is Kimberlea Chabot, and I can't wait to talk about signs. How do I know if it is a sign? What could it mean? Is it all in my head? In our time together, we will learn a very intentional process to start trusting in your intuition so you can feel more connected and more guided in your days ahead. So, a little bit of housekeeping. Please grab a piece of paper and a pen. I know you probably just sat down, and if you're like, I don't know if I want to write anything down, I was just going to listen. I want you to know this really fun fact. We are 14% more likely to reach our goals if we write them down. We're also 14% more likely to retain information and to have a stronger understanding of what we're learning. I really liked those odds, and it gave me a lot more motivation to start writing things down. So the first thing I want you to consider is this. What is one reason you decided to show up today? What are you hoping to gain from our time together? Just take a moment to jot down anything that comes to mind. One question may be more interesting than the other, or you might resonate with one more than the other. So just whatever comes to mind. And if you're one of those people like me who always wants to know, like, well, why are we doing this? It's because by focusing on what you want to gain, you will actually increase your chances of having the experience you need. So feel free to pop it in the chat if you have a reason you'd like to share. And I will also be reading some of the responses from other past participants. So I'm just checking the chat. Okay, so here are some examples. Someone in my another workshop wrote, I am interested in learning more about what I believe. And I really resonated with this because this is always my own personal goal when I'm learning something. I ask myself those questions like, is this true for me? Like, how does this fit into my own beliefs? So I'm always interested in learning and expanding my definition of self. And I know that I am my own source of knowledge. I get to decide what is true for me. Someone else wrote, I want to learn how to increase signs in my life. And I was like, yes, then you were in the right place, my friend. And another one was, I would love some tools to make my journey a little easier. Definitely. Who couldn't use tools to make our days a little brighter and a little bit more light filled? And I see some more things popping up in the chat. So to learn something new, to learn to focus and understand myself, I'd like more insight into recognizing the experiences and their meaning. Great. So before we start getting into everything, I just want to spend a few minutes checking in with self and to really anchor in your reasons for showing up today. So many of us are into like the doing all the time. And we call this like living from the neck up, all in our own thoughts, in our own head. And it can feel sometimes really different to just stop and pause. So we're going to check in a moment and just notice how it feels for you. while knowing there is nothing you need to change. Just come to this moment as you are. And I just invite you to follow along. So you can put down that paper and pencil for a moment and just notice what your body feels like, whether it's tight or loose. Maybe have your feet firmly planted on the ground. We're just going to arrive here in this moment. And I invite you to close your eyes and just take a deep breath through your nose. And let it come out your mouth in a and just notice if you're holding tension in your jaw. See if you can just let that go. Let your jaw just hang a little bit looser. And see if you can soften your shoulders, soften your gaze, soften your face. Just relax. And take another deep breath through your nose and watch it fill up into your heart space. Let it out your mouth. You're just taking this moment to check into your heart space, knowing there's nothing you need to do, but just to be with self, to be with your breath. I always forget how quickly we can simply shift from doing to being, and how it feels to be more grounded and balanced in my body. So let's start talking about signs. What is a sign? Here is a little bit of a hint for those of you who may not recognize what that image is on the screen. That is a rotary dial phone. And when they first started using them in the very beginning, people were absolutely amazed that they could pick up the receiver, dial a 7-digit number, and connect with a very specific person. So what does that have to do with a sign? A sign is a communication tool, just like the telephone. But who is communicating through these signs? Well, that depends. It could be universal consciousness, my higher self, spirit, God, angels, source energy. It's really anyone who you have decided is part of your spiritual support team. I know for me, signs help me feel guided. They remind me of that support. It's like, oh yeah, thanks for the reminder that I am part of a greater energy, a greater connected universal love, and that I am a spiritual being having a human experience. So what are some examples of signs? So some examples could be repeating numbers, like maybe you notice the number 111 and you see it like on a receipt and then on your deli number or on a license plate. It seems to be popping up. Also, animals. Animals can certainly be signs. Sometimes you see a certain animal in nature, like a blue jay or a hawk, or maybe it's just even an image, like a sticker type thing or a picture. Sometimes it can be objects like pennies or feathers or rainbows. I like this one, scents, because it was new for me to think of that as like a sign. It's not necessarily like if your partner is popping microwave popcorn and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I smell popcorn. It's kind of like the idea that you just get this strong scent and, it doesn't have to be strong. It could be just a little bit of a hint of something, but it really doesn't have any source. Like all of a sudden you smell like this gardenia and you're inside in winter, or you smell like smoke and there's nobody around who is smoking. And sometimes song lyrics, maybe there's a song you have heard like 100 times, and then all of a sudden this one line seems to kind of pop out or jump out at me, and it feels like a message. So just pop in the chat some other examples of signs that you have had in your own life. So a sign can really be anything that catches my attention and causes me to pause and notice. And it can feel like it's a message meant just for me. So I see dogs, yeah, animals. We love our animals. Ooh, chills. Oh, a bird tapping on my window every morning. I wrote about a bird tapping on my window too. I love that. Thanks, Lisa. People, yeah. Sometimes someone will say something, even like a stranger, like out of the blue, and you think, why did that person just say that? And then there's something about it and the way it was said or the way it made you feel. And you continue to think about it throughout the day. Yeah, TV is another great one. Something that a situation that plays out and you're like, oh, that's very similar to my own situation. So how do I know if it's just my imagination? How do I know I'm not just making it up? So I absolutely love this image of a child joyfully riding on his truck while imagining he is driving a real car. If you look in the shadow in the back, so using our imagination. So I bet though everyone here has had some sort of experience with signs or synchronicity in your life. Yet when you recall it or you share it with someone, it can feel really distant, even though it was like so crystal clear in the moment that it was a message meant just for me. What often happens is we start to discount how we were feeling, and we all start altering how we recall the experience. We put in like these qualifiers. Oh, I probably just made it up, or I know it can't be real, but. So how are we going to prove it is not in our imagination? So right now, we are going to set up an experiment to learn for ourselves firsthand what it feels like to experience this type of communication. This may be different than what you were expecting. Did you think I was going to try to convince you by sharing all of my experiences? If you have kids at home, I will tell you, trying to convince them of anything that you've experienced that they have not does not work out very well. They want to experience it for themselves, and so do we. And I loved this picture, this image, because I think there's just this pure joy on this child's face. It looks like he just completed, his experiment. And I want each of us to have that aha moment like he is having, that joyful discovery for our own self. So our experiment, like in every relationship, there has to be an established way to communicate. Just like we were talking about the red phone earlier. Communication is about giving and receiving and being understood. So when I was in high school, we had a foreign exchange student, and she was trying to communicate something to my mom and I, and she kept repeating the word over and over. And she probably could have said it, 10 more times, and we still could not figure out what she was trying to communicate. So she realized she needed to do something different. So all of a sudden she went like this, and then she went, and we were like, oh, we know what you're trying to say. Hair dryer. She was trying to communicate the word hair dryer to us. So let's craft your experiment. First, you are going to pick one sign. We went through examples of some signs earlier, and there were some other ones that I know people put in the chat. So pick one. There's no right or wrong choice. It's whatever kind of pops into your mind. It's whatever resonates with you. This will help establish a way to communicate and to start narrowing down our focus. So we aren't like, is this a sign? Is this a sign? We'll already know what the sign is because we're going to pick one. And if you're not sure how to pick, I'm going to walk through the steps. But when you do have your sign, feel free. You can just pop it into the chat. So if I was going to select a sign, it might sound something like this. Okay, I'm going to pick a squirrel. Squirrel was the first thing that popped into my head. But I live in Connecticut and squirrels are everywhere. Maybe that's not the best choice. Let's see. I own a cat. Maybe my sign could be an image of a cat. And my favorite number is 10. I could look for like repeating numbers or repeating tens, and I like buttons. Nah, I really like the idea of a picture of a cat the best. So just pick a sign and write down what that sign is. And remember, this is your experiment, so it can be as broad or as specific as you would like. So I am going to read from the chat. I see the number 333. Oh, a perfume scent. Oh, a particular perfume scent. So just make sure everybody has their sign. Yeah, Michelle's mentioning that she sees repeating numbers often. I'm a numbers girl too. I see a lot of numbers. Okay. So why are we picking just one sign? We're essentially announcing that this sign will now be part of our attention field. This is also known as the red car phenomenon, which goes something like this. I decide I'm going to buy a red car, and suddenly I see red cars everywhere. And I don't think that there was this huge run on red cars since I purchased mine. It is more likely that after noticing something for the first time, there is a tendency to pay more attention to it more often. And yes, I don't know what the scientific name is for the red car phenomenon, but maybe someone knows and they want to put it in the chat, but that's what I call it. Okay, so you have a sign. Now, I think this is the fun part. You are also going to select a meaning for that sign. Remember, this is all about establishing communication. Send, receive, and being understood. So often our doubt about signs comes from feeling like it was a sign, but not knowing what it might mean. And then we start getting caught up in all our thoughts. So in crafting our experiment, we are going to eliminate that variable by already selecting a meaning for our sign. Because then we can just focus on receiving. So what could your sign's message be? Ask yourself, what are the words I long to hear? I mean, what right now would bring me more lightness or ease? What is the kindest, most gentle message I could receive? So spend a little time writing down as many things as you would want to hear. You can keep it simple, but just whatever pops up, just write it down, because maybe it's a message for another sign another time. And I'm also going to share some examples and my own example. It's hard for me to be quiet, but I'm going to be quiet for just a minute. I'm so excited. I'm going to be quiet for a minute so you can write. Oh, and I see some people are already putting things into the chat as well. And feel free to do that. So here are some examples of messages. I am safe and all is well. I am loved. I am whole just as I am. I am enough. I am supported in all ways. I receive what I need when I need it. I have compassion for myself. And I see one of the examples too. Someone wrote, you are on the right path. So I like to put, personally, I like I statements, where you're saying it to yourself. So when I first did this experiment, I selected a turtle as my sign. So here's my little fun turtle. And the message for me that I wanted is, I can slow down, which is a very apropos for a turtle, the message of slowing down. And, as I started to see this turtle sign more and more in the weeks and months ahead and even years, I recorded in a notebook when and where I was and what that moment felt like. So this did two things. First, it helped me connect more easily to the feeling of when I received the sign. So it kind of started to strengthen my intuition. And it made it much more like, oh, wait, this isn't in my imagination. This is what I believe now. And I started to trust my own intuition again. Second, I started to expand upon the message. So not only did turtle mean I can slow down, it started to expand into I can trust the timing of life, or not to rush past things, to be more patient, more present, or to savor moments. So it began to feel more like I was having a conversation, a conversation with my spiritual support team. So in the next few hours, days, and weeks ahead, trust that this sign that you just selected will appear for you when it is the right time to hear this message. Now, what could cause our experiment to go awry? Let's talk about some things that others have experienced that, could possibly come up for you. So you might remember Veruca Salt from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and her famous line, "I want it now." And what comes up for some is this belief, because I want something to happen, it has to happen when I want it. And we can all get caught up in thinking our timeline is the timeline of when things should occur. So just remember, we are entering into a partnership with Source, not a dictatorship. We're also just learning about trust and how to be patient as we strive to become co-creators in our own life. I can already picture her saying, "I want my sign and I want it right now." In this case, the better advice comes from an infomercial. I'm not even sure what the product is, but I've always remembered the advice, or the tagline actually. It is to set it and forget it. So you've already set up your experiment. And not that you have to completely forget it, but you can just make space for allowing this to come into your life and to start trusting that this will unfold for you as it should. Just stay open and willing to receive. So I'm hoping we have time for a little story. I know I'm keeping you maybe a little bit later. So the first time I did this experiment with a group of women, everyone selected a sign, but they all selected a type of animal for their sign. And I selected the turtle, as I had shared earlier. And another woman decided to select hawk. And so every time she saw a hawk flying in the sky, she would remember that there's always a higher perspective and more than just her limited view of every situation. One of the other women picked like a cardinal, someone a blue jay, and another woman decided to select an owl. And she shared that this owl wallpaper that she had when she was a kid always brought her a lot of comfort. And so she decided her message would be, I trust the divine timing of life. So, when one of us received a sign, we would send out an email and share it with the rest of the group about what our experience was. And after, a few weeks, everyone except for this woman had connected with their sign. And I could see she was getting a little bit disheartened that it wasn't coming. But she said, I love that my message is I trust the divine timing of life. So I know it will open up when it should. And then one day, her daughter came home from school and she said, "Mom, you won't believe what was in the lost and found today. It's been lost for over a year." And then she put her little change purse down on the table. And her mom started to cry. So I just want to thank you for your time and your energy. I am super excited to hear what you learned about yourself, what you uncovered about your own beliefs today, and what you will discover from this experiment in the future. So, and I just love it when people share their experiences with me. So please, please reach out. And also feel free to reach out if you would like more support on how to go further with your relationship with signs or your spiritual support team. It would be my honor to continue to hold space and to provide guidance for this amazing relationship you are creating. So I am sticking around for some Q&A, and I would love if you can stick around too. Let's see. Yay. Okay, I am going to stop share. And I think anybody can just pop in a question in the chat. Oh, could a sound be a sign? I believe so. Sure. Yeah. No, it's really about, determining whether anything could be a sign. It almost is more about what it provides for you on the inside. That feeling like, oh, wait, that caught my attention. What is it about it? What is resonating inside of me? What am I starting to feel? So that connection that you have. Oh, Mandy sent, how can you figure out who is at the other end of the sign? So I think that comes back to, your own belief system and deciding, who is in my spiritual support team? What do I believe? Because it may be different for all of us. What is the meaning? Oh, I should read all the questions. What is the meaning of having many coincidences? What do I need to pay attention to when it occurs? So I would say that means you are receiving a lot of signs. And I would start writing down, part of what I talk about is being like, I was a teacher for children. And so I like the idea of experiments, and I like the idea of being curiosity and discoveries. So, starting to write down when you have those coincidences, then you can really start to pay attention to, like, what was I doing beforehand? What was the feeling I got when this coincidence happened? And you can start to notice patterns. Signs are about connecting with that feeling within self and connecting with your spiritual support team. Well, I thank you for all being a great audience, and I look forward to people reaching out in the future. And I look so thankful for Shelley and Girls Night Live. They just recently celebrated their year anniversary of helping women, showcase women to connect. And I'm just so thankful that we all have this technology to reach across to different places and connect with one another.